right? I think awesome. Okay, now that's recorded. Everyone can benefit from this sharing. So I'm quite pleasantly surprised to hear that yeah, you mentioned that people like indies, and maybe this might be the route moving forward. Because I believe that while Singapore has a lot of interest in creating job opportunity for games industry in the AAA sector, but there are a lot of people like us who prefer to work in a smaller setup, because I think you do actually get a lot more creative freedom. At the same time, you do get a bit more hands-on with the game design. Like you're not really just looking at one aspect of the game, and like you would be in a AAA setting. You actually get to touch at everything from conceptualization, even to research, down to creating and programming the game, and also like pushing it out into the market, talking to publisher, talking to your gaming community, try to exchange, or try to build up their reputation and so-called connection and relationship, right, with various people in the gaming industry. And these are things that you probably will not likely be able to get if you work in a big company, because it is going to be very specialized, it's going to be hyper-focused, and it is still itself a legitimate career track. I think for indie side, it is important to note that in school, be it whether you're in NUS or you're in DigiPen or you're in NTU, ADM, Singapore Poly, Nanyang Poly, Temasek Poly, all these schools have specialized course for gaming, right? For games development. But the thing is, often than not, they missed out on the business side of things when it comes to creating monetization design. Like, how would you price your game? What are you selling inside the game? When I say sell, I don't mean by selling items, but I'm trying to say, like, what experience are you trying to sell to the user, right? You have to ask yourself, are you building a game or are you selling a game? More often than not, if you're building a game, you do not need to go into a formal setup. You don't need a company around it. You don't need to set up all this kind of infrastructure that allows you to operate like a business. But if you're selling a game, then you need to really ask yourself, what am I building here? So why will people pay me for the things that I'm building right now, and how much will it be priced at? Right. And these are very difficult topic to tackle, because number one, the market research tools right now that's available for indie is very, very limited. If you look at Sensor Tower, if you look at App Annie, they cost like an arm and leg to just get access to very basic market research. In fact, recently they are quite, I would say, a bit bastard. They go and remove the revenue model, right? The revenue generated by the games from their website. So the moment you go in, you can only see very limited information, rather than like before. You can get a sensing like, oh, this particular game is making this much money, and you kind of know how to price your items, right? But now that price point has been removed, then it gets even harder for yourself. Like, how much time have you put in? How many people have been involved inside this development? How much should I be selling? How much is the market willing to pay for this particular experience that I'm crafting, right? And I think these are some of the things that I can extrapolate from the experience of being a freelance artist. Even for artists who graduate from art school, they find it very difficult to put a price point on the skill set that they have. Like, how much would you charge for a logo? Why can somebody charge a logo for $1,200 and some people can charge for $200? There's a huge difference in there, right? We're talking about 6x difference. And I think some designers can even charge up to $2,000 for a single logo. So how would you go about doing that? Right? There are so many factors. It's not like a one-size-fits-all. And I think it's important for us to have that conversation, because end of the day, I need to know your context. I need to know like what would be your career desire, and so that we can actually design a business model that fits around your goal as a game studio. That is a very important thing, because some people can have very ambitious goal. Like, for example, they want to build a company that can eventually be acquired by a big guy, by a big publisher. Or you can have a indie studio that can sustain itself, doesn't grow more than 10 people, and can continuously build games comfortably, right? So these are very different skills and dreams and visions that us as creators, we might have. So it's very important for us to really figure that out, and then from there, pick a business model that works. And then from there, again, extrapolate the kind of gaming projects that you should embark yourself on. Right, breaking down the cost, breaking down the production duration, budgeting, and also crafting out like what is exactly that you're selling inside the game, and how do you actually put a price point in there. And then when you actually bring this particular game to a publisher, what would be your sales pitch going to look like, right? And it's important to note that when you talk to a publisher, right, it's in their interest to sell games, right? They, frankly speaking, they don't care about what your agenda is, right? End of the day, they just want a game that they can sell. What it means is that they don't want a game where you're targeting like a 0.1% of the gaming population. You're talking about something that is like the niche of the niche. If you want to build something like that, make it a hobby project, because it is going to be very difficult for you to sustain. It's going to be very difficult for you to create a business around it. And it also is very difficult for you to find people who think like you, right, to create that one game. If you want to create a business and sustainable business, and especially when it's your first game, try to create something that has mass appeal. Try to create something that, when you put it out there, publisher will say, oh, that's a no-brainer. I'm going to carry this game. I'm going to try to sell as many copies as I can, because I know that the addressable market is really big. And from there, when you have created your first revenue stream, regardless how small it could be like $2,000 per month. It could be $6,000 per month. And you continue to build that up, right? You have one game in, say, 6 months, a simple one, right? You can start generating revenue, then it will offset some of your costs. Then you launch a second game within the same year. You continue to build up that revenue stream, and then you build up the third game, the fourth game, so on and so forth, until you become sustainable, right? And I think a lot of times, especially in the student mindset, I myself have mentored like quite a few student projects, especially in the FYP. People tend to get very ambitious, right? And I came from that environment myself. So I know for a fact that when given a choice, I would go for something epic. I would go for something that's like, whoa, like wow the world. But the thing you got to recognize is that there is the highest possible quality that you can achieve in almost every single aspect of things that you do. Like, for example, there are high quality pixel art and there are low quality pixel art. Similarly, there are high quality 3D and there are low quality 3D games, right? And you got to ask yourself, which version of the game can I build that I can achieve this so-called high quality? And that's a very important distillation that you guys will have to build up the sensibility to come to, because if you're unable to deliver the high quality version of a game that you can build within the budget that you have, then chances are it will not see the day of light in the open market, right? Because once the game goes out, you're not competing in Singapore, you're not competing in Southeast Asia, you're competing globally. And this is the part that it makes it a lot harder for you, because Singaporeans, we don't speak a lot of like Southeast Asian countries' native languages. Like, even if you want to create a game, you have to translate to Vietnamese, to Thai, to Filipinos, to Indon, in order for these games to be widely accepted, right? So what it means is that immediately when you build an English native game, your addressable market become US, become Europe, right? And these markets are huge and tremendous. Just in US alone, right, we're looking at about 44,000 registered game studio in 2022. 44,000 registered game studio. Let's assume that only half of them are creating a game, right? The rest maybe it's just registered for fun or registered but we didn't follow through and whatnot. We're still talking about 22,000 games being pushed out into the market, right? And you got to understand that only high quality games will get picked up, will get some kind of attraction, will get some kind of attention from influencers who are starving of content to cover or to play test, all right? And you need to have that offering to people who are creating content around this type of products, right? So you got to look at it from a macro strategy, not just like from the game itself, right? When I am done with this project, right, who are the people that will likely play it? Who will be the people that will help me create attention and create content and also help market the game out? So you're looking effectively at influencers, you're looking at publishers, then you need to know what are they looking for, right? That becomes the thing that you're selling, right? You want to be able to give them like, oh, this particular game is fun to watch. So it becomes like a very twitchable game. You need to have something like this as a core ingredient inside your game design. If you have something like that, then effectively you will be able to see that people will take up your game, play it, stream it, and then create attention, and then they'll come to you and maybe they will say, hey, your game is really well received on my platform. Maybe you guys can go into a partnership, and from there, you build up your business, right, very organically. So I think these are really just some of the touch points that it's very important for you guys to recognize that you will not be able to learn them in school, and it will be a very expensive lesson to learn in real life after you come out, right? So I think it's important for you to, at this point, before you graduate, before you decide to go into starting a startup, try to recognize what are the checkboxes that I have to tick and prepare myself for before you actually go into this particular environment. Because again, right, if you are given 1 hour to chop down a tree, to spend 45 minutes sharpening the axe, right? So it's like way more cost effective. You're gonna waste less energy. You might still be able to chop the same tree in 1 hour, but the thing is, one will consume way more energy than the other, right? So there's still that so-called cost effectiveness we are talking about. So you really have to prepare yourself, knowing exactly what you need to do before you actually go up and put together a game idea, and then from there try to round up people who will be dedicating months and months of their time, be it bootstrapping or be it like being paid way below market rate to put this game out. Right. So again, try to put out a scope that you believe will work based on your best educated situation. Like you can easily come to Cargo Studio and just talk to us. We don't charge for consultation, basically, right? We are really here to help. And frankly speaking, if we are charging people just to come and say, hey, yeah, let me look at your game idea, and then we give you some feedback, and that will cost you $500, then these are the things that we don't really care much about. If we have more money, if we want actually more money, basically we just put more energy into the games that we're building, which is already generating like 7 digits revenue on a monthly basis, right? So what we are doing here is really to grow the indie scene, because again, being a mentor for the different schools in Singapore, it's quite painful to see that like AAA studio, right? Like quoting one of the lecturers in Japan, he said, "I give you the whole chicken, you cut off the leg, and then you return me the rest." So only like the 10% will be accepted into the big company. And but the thing is, there are 90% of the rest of the graduates who wants a job in the gaming industry, right? Where would they end up going? Some of them might go into insurance selling, property selling, go into finance sector. And yeah, I think at the same time, we have people who goes into the AAA studios, and after a few years, they feel like, you know what, I have learned enough. I want to come out and make my own game. And this is where you start to see that, again, game is an art form. You can't stop creators for wanting to create. And because of that, you will see a lot of people wanting to build something worth building, right? And I think it's also important for us to really have all these platforms made available for people who wants to do it, so that it becomes a lot more cost effective when people are building together, sharing the same tools, sharing the same resources, at the same time, creating healthy competition amongst one another, right? I think the other thing that I want to bring up is that more often than not, people think that their ideas are top secret. Like it is where the money is. Actually, it's not. Right? Everyone has the same idea. In fact, like I just mentioned, right, in US alone, we have 44,000 registered game studios. Can you imagine worldwide? We are talking about hundreds and thousands of them. So everyone has their own idea, right? It boils down to who can actually deliver the best version of that particular idea. And chances are, while you can think of it, while you can actually conceive the idea in your head, there will be at least 50 or 100 other studios or game designers out there who has the same idea as you. It might be some differences here and there between the ideas, but it boils down to the same mechanics, right? If you look at one good example, is this game called Vampire Survivor, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a $3 game on Steam, and it has all the bells and whistles. It is fun. It's a one-time purchase, and if I'm not mistaken, it's sold approximately. Correct me if I'm wrong. You guys can go and do a Google. I think it made a few $100,000 from sales. Right, and the thing is, it's a very simple game. You just go around, roguelike, go to a dungeon, go to a level, just pick up power-ups, and then just keep killing things that is coming towards you all the time. And the power-ups is exactly the same as this particular game that just got launched on mobile. It's called Survivor.io. Yeah, Wenqi, you can help me just type it in the chat on this game so they can actually do a research and reference it. Thanks. Yeah, Survivor.io is another version, exactly the same as the Vampire game, but it is made with this mass appeal built into it. And the thing is, it's generating approximately $3 million per month. Right, we're talking about a game idea that is $3 on Steam versus another game that has exactly the same mechanic, but it's generating $3 million per month. And when you look at it, it boils down to exactly being the same mechanic, but one executed way better than the other in terms of art form, in terms of monetization design, progression design, as well as building it in a very sensible platform, which is mobile, right? And the thing is, I'm not like exactly saying that everyone should go mobile. You need to know where your target audience is and what kind of game you're building. I think building a casual game on Steam is really a waste of effort to a certain extent, because in order for you to turn on a game on a PC, right, in chemistry, we call it activation energy, right? But the thing is, it applies to gamers as well. In order for me to turn on an app on my desktop, the activation energy is really, really high. I need to know that I have X amount of time and I want to commit to playing this particular game. But on mobile, the activation energy to turn on an app is really low, right? If I'm like bored transiting in MRT, taking a bus, or just waiting for a friend, it's easy for me to just open up the game. And if your game is like 5 minutes, 3 minutes, it is perfect, right? And it's something that I was just, let me just go in and kill some time inside this particular app. And in return, I actually get some progression inside, right? Versus like saying, oh, I'm building a very simple game and it's going to be launched on Steam. If it's a simple game, build it on mobile because you're going to see more conversion, you're going to see better product to market fit, you're also going to see better monetization opportunity versus putting it on a Steam. If you want to build something on Steam, then make sure that you are investing the right things into it. Like, for example, having great narrative that is very immersive, or having great audio that you can't really enjoy on mobile. So again, using a platform, try to distill down what are the strengths and weaknesses, right, of each platform, and whether or not your game ideas fits very well with the strength of the medium that players will be using to play your game. So these are, again, very important consideration points when everyone is trying to decide how to go about building your particular game, right? And I think, again, it boils down to what you're selling, right? I think, again, this is one of the key mantra that no one should forget, because you are essentially selling something. You must remember that. And there's no shame in that, because I don't believe in like those people who keep saying that, oh, I'm a free-to-play player. Like, to me, it's a little bit shameless because you want to play a game and you refuse to pay games developer for the hard work that I put in. I think this is not like something to be proud of. In fact, if I see that I enjoyed something thoroughly, the more I should actually try to find ways to, express that kind of gratification or enjoyment that I've had, enjoying their product. And similarly, like, you can just extrapolate the same thing. Like, you go to the street, walk down to the street basket, and you take a lot of photos. You recorded the way they play the music, or they sang, or they dance, or they perform some kind of magic. After recording it, you put on Facebook and you put on Instagram and whatnot. Then you just walk away. How would you feel about that? Like, versus like, actually going down to the hat and then just tip a $2 and then just continue doing the same thing and just posting on social media. You basically enjoyed someone's effort and content, and I think that you deserve to be paid for it. So this is something that, again, we shouldn't be going into the industry thinking that, oh, it's bad for me to just ask money from the player, right? Because at the same time, you just have to ask yourself, did I actually sell something to the player? If I did, then yes, what is the fair exchange of monetary value for the experience that they just gotten from my game? And once you are like, having this very nice equilibrium between the enjoyment and also like the value that they have gotten from your game, then that monetary return that comes back to you should be something that you deserve, right? Rather than feeling like, oh, I'm just trying to design a game where players can play for free, and if they want to pay me, they pay me. I think this kind of mindset shouldn't be around for indies, and especially for game makers. Okay, I know that I've actually regurgitated a lot of points here. I want to just take a short pause. And whoever that has any question, please feel free to just type it out in the chat if your mic is not working, or if you want, just turn on the mic and just ask. So for the next 5 to 10 minutes, let's maybe go through some Q&A.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Kit. So if anyone has any questions, you all can just type in the chat. I guess to start the ball rolling, you talked about people and us as students, we are going into the indie scene, maybe because we don't want to pursue AAA, right? What would you say is the best place to start if you want to make this a career? Like, where should we start?
Good question. I always believe in building together. So do try to find like a whole bunch of people who share the same dream and vision with you, and ideally share the same, enjoys the same type of games, because your first game should be something that you are very familiar with, because there are so many unknown variables. You kind of want to use a project that you know for a fact that you understand end to end. Like, for example, if you enjoy tower defense games like myself, my first game was a tower defense game. because I know every little nuances that is required to go into the game, right? Versus saying like, yeah, I'm a huge tower defense player, but my first game is an FPS game. Then chances are you're gonna have so many different failure points that potentially can happen. And trust me, it will happen because it's your first game. You need that experience. You need to build it up. So build something that you are familiar with, build something that you can finish, and build something that you know you can reach a high quality, right? High quality is basically anything that you see doing relatively well in the market and platform that you're building for. It could be on Steam, it could be on mobile, and then after that, yeah, you just have to decide, is this something that you can do for X period of time before you need to look for a job? Or is it something that you actually need cash up front to pull it off? I think this is one of the hardest questions, but the thing is, it is still going to be an entrepreneurial journey. So being an entrepreneur means that you are taking on the financial risk doing something, but of course the return is going to be tremendous if you do well, right? So what would be the best way to do it is trying to set aside at least a 6 months runway, be it bootstrapping or be it like doing some kind of angel fundraising round from friends and family, from relative, or from whoever that you know that is looking to invest in a game. Have 6 months to build up an MVP, right? Such that you can use the MVP to either launch it into the market, use it to talk to a publisher, or use it to talk to VCs who is willing to back your game idea to the fullest state.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I think we have another question in chat. As an indie dev, how do you get over the sadness that big companies have such a massive edge over you? For example, the Survivor IO versus Vampire Survivors example.
Yeah, it's a sucky reality, right? And yeah, this is actually one part that I don't want to preach about Web3 too much. But personally, after having started a Web3 game studio, we kind of see like this is an opportunity for indies to do or flourish very well in this particular space because of this whole concept of tokenization. Those who are not familiar with the blockchain technology or whatsoever, right? This may sound a little bit alien to you, but I think that tokenization is a very important feature going forward for indie, especially because big guys will not be able to leverage on this technology as effectively as indie developers. Because in the Web3 space, it is very important for you to build up the reputation, or rather to build up your relationship with your gaming community, right? Even before your game is launched. What we have effectively seen in the last 2 years is that people have proven to be able to raise funds through early NFT sales, up to a couple of millions of dollars, even before the game starts in development. What it means is that it's like a Kickstarter for games, right? And once the money is in, it kind of seals your concept and your idea as a legitimate project moving forward. Right? If someone else comes along and steal your game mechanic and steal your game idea, it becomes like, hey, this is a clone of that particular project that minted out and raised like $2 million through NFT sale. They are the one that came up with this idea. They are the one that came up with this mechanic. And we have all decided to back this particular project, and we show it by, parting our money with this game developers. And this is something that, again, the big guys will never be able to replicate because they can't take the money from the public. In that sense, because they have shareholders to answer to, they have investors who is already giving them money, so they have no need for that. And you are effectively building that so-called rapport with your future consumers through the Web3 NFT sale. Then when, again, how you engage them, how you actually show them your development, how transparent can you be with your entire journey is going to be something that's very precious to these people because number one, they are invested in your project. Number two is that they saw your game first, right? And they will be the one that will go around telling people, hey, these guys are doing this particular game. If they see something similar, they will say, hey, you know what, this particular project that I backed is doing exactly what this project is doing, and they came first, right? So you kind of get that legitimization of your game idea in this particular space. But when it comes to mobile and PC and traditional Web3 gaming, Web2 gaming space, it's going to be hard to prove that, like you came up with the idea first, because the nature of it is that in Web3, you sell people the idea, people buy the idea, and then you build a game. But in the traditional gaming space is you build a game, and then people will look at try your game, and then they know what you're trying to build. So it's like a reverse process, right? And yeah, once your game has some kind of traction, somebody can just with a deeper pocket, they will just double down, right? Basically mobilize the entire studio of 100 people, replicate this game to the fullest extent it can be. They can be very creative and imaginative about what you have done way better than you can, because at the end of the day, you're still working with a very limited number of brains, right, in team, versus another team that has way more experience, way more people, way more creative executives that can actually pull off something more powerful than yours, right? So this is going to be a hard topic or hard thing to swallow, but I think when it comes to indie ideas, you realize that the big game ideas are all built on the things that we build, right? At the same time, we should never stop trying to sell our version to the big guys, because one way is that for the big guys to replicate your game idea, it's actually cheaper for them to acquire you to a certain extent. Simply put, we can develop a game with, say, $50,000, right, with a small team. But for them to replicate your idea, it will cost them about 600,000 onwards because of the structure that they have, right? No matter what they do, they will have a producer, they will have like QA, they will have the huge team, they will have like all these other things like the pantry, like the office space. Everything is calculated into their cost. While for yourself, you are basically very lean. And you can actually build up this opportunity to say, hey, if you want to copy my idea, no, don't do that. Why don't you just hire my team, acquire our IP, acquire our studio, and then we continue to build it under your brand. We can just give you the whole game, right? Just make a fair trade in terms of like the company equity, right? End of the day, you are building something that's worth selling, which is the company, not the game itself. Right. So again, it's not to say that when you build something good, then someone will come along and steal it. But you need to know how can you reach out and then turn that deal around and offer your services to these big guys. Because getting acquired is also like a big, tremendous success, in my opinion, for indies.
Yeah, thank you so much. So if anyone just joined us, please, if you have any questions for Kit, please mention it in the Zoom chat. We're just talking about how you can make and go have a career in indie development. Yes. Yeah. I guess another question I can ask is, there's a lot of talk about, oh, if you need good art to make a good game. Is this really true from an artist standpoint? And what do you feel about it?
It is, right? Let me give you an analogy, right? If you look at Tinder, right, how it works is that it presents to you the picture of the lady or a guy, and then after that, your first instinct is to decide whether you like what you saw before you actually look into the profile, right? And then chances are, if you don't even like what you saw, you will not go in and see the profile, like what this person like, what this person is into. And I think this is just us accepting human being for what we are, right? We actually can be quite superficial, and it's very impossible, right? It's almost impossible to try to sell the concept without first having something attractive for players to click into. I think this is the reason why there's a whole science into like how do you design your Steam page, what kind of picture or video you need to put together in the first thumbnail. Subsequently, what are the different thumbnails that you do put in? Because the picture will paint 1,000 words, and you cannot expect people to get the gist of your game by playing your game, because that's already too late. You need to really get them excited or interested visually upfront, and then from there they will give your game a chance.
Yeah, thanks for that. Does anyone have any more questions in chat?
So I think when it comes to like that particular topic about artists, right? I think I recently did chance upon a GDC video. So it was also another indie guy who eventually he learned after a few years that he was a game developer. He basically coded a lot, and he did say that the one thing he learned was to start paying artists for art. Because for the longest time, he has been building games with stock art, like buying all his photos, buying all this graphic vector art and whatnot. And at the end of the day is that after he started paying a few artists to create art assets, his game is starting to sell a lot better because he has some control over the visuals, like how he plays a part in the game. And it's also something that people can easily tell whether it's stock or whether is it like something that's created by someone creative.
Yeah, I think we have another question in chat. How much of a game's success is marketing versus quality of the game?
The hard truth is marketing. Marketing is a big part. If you look at Cyberpunk, right, it took approximately 280 million to develop, but their marketing budget was way more than that, 300 million. So effectively, if you look at mobile game budget breakdown, you should be expecting 20% of your entire budget to be in games development and 80% in marketing. And that's just the reality of things right now, because right now, in terms of like exposure, in terms of user acquisition, you are still relying on the big guys and the traditional channel like Google, like Facebook, like Instagram, like TikTok, iOS, all this kind of advertising platform, right, to get exposure. Means that this is where people see your game, and this is where you pay for visibility. And the thing is, again, if you build something that's really good, no one will come in and see it, right, to even experience it for themselves, right? They have to get exposed to your game through marketing, through user acquisition. I think this is the part that costs a lot of money. So while the quality of game is something that we'll continue to strive for, and more often than not, you just build up to where your budget allows you, right? Especially as an indie. So it's not like you get this blank check that you can just create any game that you want, right? You just build something that you feel this is your limit. And yeah, make sure that your limit is not stopped at building the game, but also being able to pay reviewers, ship the game not ship the game, sorry. Try to buy some traffic from some places, buy advertising space, so that people can see your game. Because again, you have to play by how the world works, right? When we talk about Google, iOS, and whatnot, there are such a thing called the visibility algorithm. So you kind of need like to hit a certain metric in order for your game to be organically be discoverable by people. So what it means is that you need certain number of downloads, you need certain number of like people commenting on it, you need certain number of people who turn on the app multiple times in a single day. In a single given period of time, right? And once you have hit all these metrics, then the engine will start to see, hey, this game is getting some kind of attraction, and let me just shoot it out to more people, because at the end of the day, they are still trying to sell more games. And from there, whether the player stays in your game after they see it, it boils down to the quality of the game, right? So marketing and quality of the game plays very different role in your entire funnel. The marketing will be the very beginning of your funnel, and how long people will stay inside your game is boils down to the quality of the game.
Yeah. Another spin-off question I think many of us want to know is that as an indie, because we don't have the huge budget that normally these AAA studios have, how would you go about marketing your game if we don't have so many resources?
Like I said, right, if you build something that has mass appeal, if you build something that has sound monetizing design, once you put it in front of a publisher, they will know what they are seeing, right? And the thing is, if you put something that, if you invented something that solves a real world problem, when someone sees it, they will know the value immediately. They will say, hey, you know what, this is a great idea, I'm going to start selling it. Okay, then this is where you can leverage and say, okay, yes, this game is not finished. It's only like 60% of what we envision it to be. So I will need like a little bit more money and support for us to complete this particular project to its fullest glory, right? These are the kind of bargaining chips that you need to be able to gather for yourself, right? And I think, again, being like in the indie situation, you need to be able to go out and do sales, right? Either you're selling the capability of your team, or you're selling this game vision that you have in your mind that can guarantee people that will pay for it, or you're just basically selling some kind of a hope that whoever that carries your game right now is going to be able to enjoy a lot of revenue from there. So these are the kind of the mindset, right, that you have to go into when you're building your first game, because again, what you effectively want in the first 3 years of your career is to build games that can monetize. You will start to realize that the first question that the publisher will ask you more often than not is that, okay, how much money have you made from the games that you designed before? They won't even spend a lot of time looking into your game at the beginning, because if they see that, oh, my previous game, my daily active user is about 70,000, and I already earn about maybe $400,000 in terms of revenue from the game. If you tell them this and then you show them, this is my second game, I'm going to be releasing it next month, would you like to carry it? Chances are they will say yes. they won't even go in and say, oh, what do you have, what's inside, so on and so forth. And they will look at track record way more than they will look at the quality of the game. I think this is really another bargaining chip that you need to build up for yourself. But the thing is, of course, if this is your first game, how would you actually justify that, right? So it's going to be hard for you to do that. And I think bootstrapping is one of the way, and you always need to be able to figure out, okay, what should I do in order for people to want to click into my game, download it, play it, monetize on it? And the thing is, once people start playing your game, you start to use all these metrics, right, to help you again in your negotiation table to actually get publishers to carry your game. And more often than not, you will realize that there are publishers who are willing to pay you to get exclusive rights to your game, because every publisher is starved of content as well. There's such a thing called exclusivity. Right? You look at the current market, you have Disney Plus, you have Netflix, you have Amazon Prime, you have HBO, so on and so forth. Everyone is now moving to an exclusive content model, simply because if I can have the same content everywhere, then it doesn't matter where I go. I just subscribe to one and I get access to that, right? And publishers have the same issue, right? They will carve out a niche for themselves. Oh, I'm super strong in Vietnam, I'm super strong in Thailand. So I will find games that I feel the Vietnamese will play, or the Thai players will play. You have to find, you have to network with the publishers to make sure that they are willing to take and cover your game, and then they will know that they will be able to monetize on that. So yeah, create something that you can sell. Then your conversation with the publisher will be a lot easier the first game.
Thank you for the tips. We have another question in chat. How important is it to cater your game to people with low-end devices?
How important is it? I think it's a plus. I don't think it's a must, right? And it boils down to what you're doing here, because if you are talking about using Unreal Engine to build your first game, I think it's also, again, it's going to be a risk, right? Because going back to the same theory, it's your first game, try to eliminate as much uncertainty and unknown variable as possible. Use something that you're familiar with, try to come up with a game that you can push to the fullest of quality. If you use Unreal, you're challenging basically every other Unreal games out there, right? And it's going to be a very steep battle to fight. So if you go back to like using Unity, then yeah, build something that you feel is you can achieve again to the highest, fullest potential version of your game. So that being said, chances are catering to low-end devices, it boils down to the game engine that you're using, and I think that you shouldn't have to worry about that feature. You should really worry about what is the best quality of the version of the game that I can build. And that will effectively translate down to, okay, whether or not the low-end devices will be able to play your game.
Yeah, thank you for that. There's another question in chat. Are there a list of publishers or other resources you would recommend for indie devs?
Let me see. Well, okay, so let's just put it this way. One of the reasons why we started Cargo Studio is that it's easier for us to put 10 games in front of a publisher and ask them which one they're interested in than having 10 studios going to the publisher, each presenting one game. Right, so you can see where the economy of scale comes in, right? And I think it's very important to realize that having a list of publisher and other resources for indies is not exactly going to be very helpful. I believe that for indies to do well, it needs to be like a association of indies coming together, and then from there, right, everyone is just going out to tell every publisher or people that they know in the industry about the games that everyone is building. So if we can move ourselves into this particular environment, then chances are we can see a lot of good games coming out of Singapore. So that being said, we don't exactly have a list right now, but the thing is we are often than not selling multiple games from whoever that we are meeting or talking to, because this is way more economical for us. So chances, if let's say we hear this guy is investing into, say, hyper casual, then we look at our portfolio and our partners and our friends or everyone who is doing hyper casual. Hey, why don't you check out these guys? Why don't you check out this list of games? Similarly, for like investors, right, they also say, hey, I'm investing into open world games, or I'm investing into like mobile titles. So do you know of anybody that has that? Then again, relying on your network of game developers, if you hear that, try to market your friends' games, try to push your friends' games out, because I think this kind of collaborative environment, right, is going to do everyone a huge favor, because you're going to be coming from credible sources at the same time. That kind of pressure, right, that will give you will help you do better, because if I recommend your game, I need to make sure that your game is good enough. Right. At the same time, when I want to recommend my friend's game, I need to know that my friend is going to be able to deliver, because if not, you look bad on myself. Right. So I think that being said, again, we don't have a list of publisher and resources that we'll recommend for indies, but I would say come together and build together. That is probably where you discover the most leads and also generate the most opportunity for almost everyone inside the organization.
Yeah, thank you for that. Does anyone have any more questions in the chat? Maybe could you talk about your journey becoming from an artist to setting up Cargo Studio itself?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Like your talk about your journey or from being an artist to setting up Cargo Studio. Like what made you take the leap?
Interesting. It's a long journey for me. So I spent 3 years in poly doing art. I know I want to come into the games industry at the get-go. And I spent another 4 years in NTU ADM doing 3D animation. Eventually, yeah, it is still coming down the path of the art in games. Then I started my first game studio with a bunch of friends that I went to this program called Gambit in MIT. So once we were there, we spent the summer building games together, and after that we came back to Singapore and said, hey, let's start a game studio. Then that's where we started our game studio. Like I said, I built my first tower defense game with that team, and we got acquired to Silicon Valley. So this is where I kind of got that breakthrough, because apart from just being the art person inside the game industry, I kind of were exposed to a lot more things in the team itself, like setup. Effectively, what you saw was that apart from the game, I also touched game design, I touched marketing, I touched user acquisition, I touched like the math model designs when it comes to like probabilities, and also like players earn rate and farm rate within the game. So that also means going down the path of simulations and also using different tools. And having that kind of exposure helped me get the entire picture of how things work, all the way from the first exposure, or rather the first time someone sees your game logo, to the point they decide that they are done with your game. Right? I think going through this entire journey, you will get the sensibility of like how it would be like to run the entire business. And the founders who acquired my studio, they are Harvard, Stanford, and Cornell graduates. So you can also kind of get a glimpse that these people are very methodical about the way they do things, and they are always almost data driven when it comes to making decisions. So this is also something that I picked up and become very well integrated into my regular professional practices, right? And you can start to see that, you know, having both the art side and the business side of things gelling together, I was able to comprehend a lot of strategic kind of involvement in running a game studio, as well as building a game product. And I think this, as a gamer myself, who also spends quite a bit in games, I can also empathize from the player standpoint. So again, it's all about perspective, right? The more you gather, the better you will be able to see the big picture, and you will be able to come up with a more comprehensive and likable product. So it's important for us to not funnel into or channel or shoehorn ourselves into a specific role, because knowing contextually what the other parts are doing and how it plays a part in the entire experience is going to help you understand exactly how to solve certain problem when it comes along. Because there will be times where you put out a game that you feel is great, like you went for play test and everybody says it's good, and when the data comes back suggesting that no one is playing your game, you don't know what is the reason, because you don't have enough perspective. You wouldn't know whether is it the marketing that didn't work, whether is it like, oh, it just so happened in a macro scale another game launched who had better marketing is played exactly like the way yours play, and it's basically taking all the attention away from your game. It could be that, right? Or it could really just be that it just didn't work for some countries because their devices are, not suitable to run your game. So all in all, there's going to be so many different variables that will that makes it impossible for you to understand why are things not working, right? And I think having again all this perspective allow you to at least pinpoint or troubleshoot right down to exactly what you feel you need to improve in, or what do you feel you need to acquire in terms of like maybe even talent, right, to fill up your team to cover this particular blind spot that the team currently has. And then from there, hopefully you can overcome the problem.
Yeah, thank you for that. There's another question in the chat. Are there certain genres or features in games that you would suggest new indie developers to stay away from?
So many. Yeah, don't build a what you call that? Battle Royale game. Don't build a first-person shooter. Don't build games that like MOBA. I think everyone kind of wants to build their favorite game. When it comes to like in a final year project, or just being your first product, you start to realize that yeah, people can be quite ambitious and doesn't know exactly how deep the rabbit hole can go. Even for like a game that people think is simple like Street Fighter, right? And you got to ask yourself, why is there a difference between players who enjoy Street Fighter exclusively and players who enjoy Mortal Kombat exclusively, or even Tekken exclusively? It's because all three of them has very different secret sauce when it comes to being a fighting game, right? And if you look at Marvel vs. Capcom, it also has its own play style. But the thing is, they're all fighting games, right? How the punches connect, how the hitboxes interact with the players, with the characters, how the combos are being executed, all these things are different play styles that you can so-called branch from by picking that particular genre. So if you are critical enough, you should be able to break down exactly what, again, going back to the main point, what are you selling? Right? If you can sell something that is unique and you can sell something that is fun, then it becomes a genre that is available for you. So it's not for me to say that which genre is good for you or which genre is something that you should stay away from. Right? It should be something that, again, you're familiar with, something that you can finish, and something that you can push to the highest quality possible without breaking your budget. So these are the three key points that I would say will determine which genre of game you build.
Okay. Actually, there's another follow-up question. What would you recommend for indie developers to build for a game? Which genre?
Wait, sorry. Which question are you reading out? Is it
It's the Leo's question, the one before, like the opposite as well. Like, what genres or features in games would you suggest indie developers try to make?
Yeah, like I said, I'm not going to suggest what you should or shouldn't make. If your game genre fulfills that 3 points that I just mentioned, number one, the best quality version that you can come up with without breaking your bank. Number two is something that you're familiar with. And what's my third point? Gotta look back at the recording and digest it. Yeah, so if it hits these key points, right, then it becomes a genre that you and your team can build. Okay, so it boils down to your composite, your capabilities, your collective experience, not a game genre, I would say.
Yeah. There's another question. Do you have any suggestions on how to make a board game have 3D gameplay? My professor said having 3D graphics and 3D board terrain is not enough.
Well, it depends on who your professor is. Has your professor actually sold a game or able to create a game that monetizes, or like have built a game that that was in this genre and able to sell it? So if you look at some of the games in the mobile space, like Game of Chance, right? Game of Dice, sorry. It was doing quite well, and it's basically a board game style game, and it has 3D characters, and it's generating millions of dollars in monthly revenue. So it works. so so again, right, I think the mechanic itself is something that isn't actually a deterministic factor when it comes to potential success for your game. I think what's important is, again, the experience that you're selling. Like, I can have a scissors paper stone game, but maybe the core game is scissors paper stone, but the secondary game loop is like winning as much scissors paper stone game as you can, so that you can acquire a certain kind of currency and you can build up your house, right? So that becomes something that is attractive to the player. Then your scissors paper stone game is just somewhat complementary, but it's actually still a core mechanic, because without that, you will not generate the required currencies farm you for the players. So it boils down to what kind of progression design that you can pair on top of whatever that you have, as well as that monetization design, because these two things are supposed to complete the entire experience. When we say monetization design, right, is that I'm not sure whether everybody feels the same way, right? The only time I enjoy a football match the most was the time I bet on the match. So having a skin in the game, having like spent money inside it, makes the entire experience a lot more enjoyable. And people should focus on creating a monetization design that is fun, right? When I actually spend $1.99 inside the game, or $6.99, or even up to $99 for a single purchase, I must feel that satisfaction of gaining something that I thoroughly enjoy. Right? You do not want to leave a bad taste in people's mouth when people make that purchase, but at the same time, you kind of want to make sure that, again, it's a fair exchange of value. You give me this much to get these items inside this game, or this kind of experience inside the game. And having not spent any money in any game, you would never be able to design that experience, right? You can't get a vegan to cook a steak for you, or to cook a perfect steak. So it's important for you guys to collect all this perspective and be able to, again, design the monetization design and progression design such that it complements your game, regardless of the genre. There's a good chance for you to just build a mobile game right now, similar to League of Legends. But the thing is, you can have a different secondary loop that is so fun and so attractive for players, then it becomes like a new game altogether. But the core game is still players going into the mobile, trying to defend their tower, trying to kill off the towers of the opposing team. It's still a 6v6 hero fight, or 5v5 hero fight game, right? Again, it boils down to what you're selling here, right?
Yeah, thank you for that. Another question in the chat. I'm thinking about monetization. How important is it that players find monetization fair, and does it have a tangible impact on the success of the game? And would you recommend indie devs to try and create live service games?
Okay, so I think this is another interesting topic, because time and time again, I do find that students are asking this item quite a lot. Like, they always struggle and cannot differentiate the difference between monetization and quality of game. They always feel like if I focus on monetization, it will compromise the quality of my game. Actually, the two things are not mutually exclusive. So it's important for you to understand that if somebody decides to pay and get certain kind of advantage or certain kind of perks inside the game, they should be rightfully be able to do so, because number one, you're a business, right? So I just came back from a theme park. I paid the same ticket with everyone, right? And the thing is, I flew overseas for that theme park, right? So for myself, I am willing to pay for the advanced passes, like to skip this particular queue that was literally 120 minutes queue time. Right, having spent so much money to reach that country and go inside the theme park, spending $20 more just to get the priority queue is something that I'm willing to pay. Right. So what does it mean for me versus the other people who are queuing inside that 120 minutes queue line? Hey, can you see the difference here? When somebody pays for it, it's because it is to them a fair thing. it shouldn't have to care about what the other people are feeling. Like when I spend that $20, I shouldn't have to, oh, poor guys who are in the queue for 2 hours. And then because of that, I feel bad about paying that $20. Right? The people who pay will never think that way. And what effectively whoever that pays right now is that, yes, I'm doing it because I can afford it and because I have my reasons. And those who decide to remain in the queue, they have their own reasons as well, right? At the same time, if you are saying that, yeah, you want to create a space where even paying users are not going to be able to easily queue out the free-to-play users, then again, you are not operating in your best interest, because you are having this very wishy-washy monetization design that doesn't really benefit people who are willing to part with their money. And at the same time, you kind of want to take care of people who are not paying you for your effort, right? You can see where the contradiction lies. So you are not taking care of either one very well in this particular sense.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think we have time for one more question.
So indie developers creating live service game.
Oh yes, the second part.
Live service game, I assuming you're talking about mobile games, right? Where it's like consistently being updated, more content, weekly, monthly kind of events. I think it should be an eventual thing for all ambitious game studio to do, because I think this is a very interesting avenue to move down towards, because not only will it create scalability for your game, and also it allows your game to be more easily accepted by a publisher, because everyone wants to see that it's not a one-off, that they spend the time building up relationship with you, building up that integration with you, only to see your game last 3 months with a player. You know what I mean? If you look at every single game or other businesses out there, it costs more to acquire a new user than it is to retain one. So a lot of businesses are more than happy to do refunds, are more than happy to do like giveaways, and also like so-called reimbursement, right, for the consumers, to make sure that they're happy with the service and whatnot. So by recognizing that, you realize that you have to build up your player base. By having a live service games, it means that you can build up from 1,000 players all the way up to 100,000 players, because your game, people who join on day one, has a chance of staying with you all the way until you decide to close down the entire game. And live services games have this kind of, like I said, benefit, right? Because you can build up your user base, and the more you keep iterating, the more you build up, it becomes a lot more attractive and fun for players to come in. And again, having live service, it also means that when I invest in something, I know that this game studio is not going away. I know that it's not a one-time thing, and I will happily, keep buying certain things from this particular game. You'll start to see that player spending in the game is also correlated to how big the company is and who published it, right? Because you will know for a fact, oh, these guys tend to, support the game for up to 5 years and beyond. So when I actually do spend upfront inside the game, I have that information in my mind, and I know that it's not going to go away. So more often than not, I will buy Blizzard's game and play and monetize inside it, because I know Blizzard's not going to shut down anytime soon. Even though you can argue that it's poorly run, but who cares, right? Because you will still have to take care of stakeholders. If really the revenue is dropping, you can trust the stakeholders to actually replace the executives, and then you'll now have a new bunch of people who will continue to use Blizzard and IP to build more games in the future. Right, it's not like a company that will suddenly poof disappear, and then everyone who invested in the game, like Hearthstone, like Diablo Immortal, or like even in the current Overwatch games, to see that the things that spent inside the game is now no longer accessible. Right. So having that longevity inside your game really is going to be very beneficial. However, it is going to be a very challenging endeavor to build up something worthwhile. So this is also something to take note on, because yeah, it is very, very hard to pull off.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kit. I think we have a last question. When in a dev's life cycle, do you recommend attempting something like this? Since likely there will be a significant maintenance cost versus working on creating a stable of one-off game releases to generate passive income. Okay,
so go and check out survivor.io. Tell me how much maintenance it takes to run the game, and if you can generate $31 million, you can literally hire a team to maintain that bloody game. So and continue to build even more projects and titles. So yeah, try to think big. Try to make sure that you recognize that once a game is doing well or able to monetize, you should be able to open up even more budget for yourself to maintain a game, right? And more often than not, it becomes like a very, very good learning opportunity for indies. For very junior indies developers. What it means is that it's not to pass on the maintenance um, to interns or whatever, or fresh grads. But the thing is, you must be able to pitch to the interns and the fresh grad the same way that I am preaching to you right now, is that you need to build up the expertise, you need to build up the exposure, you need to build up your experience before you embark on your eventual ambitious game project. So by having the opportunity to maintain a simple game, it's also a way for them to realize, okay, how deep again the rabbit hole goes and what are the required infrastructure I need to build for myself in order for me to facilitate the maintenance at a very cost-effective manner. Right. So I think these are, again, where the engineering ingenuity comes in. You need to be able to build up your live ops protocols inside your studio so that it's not something that you need to spend a tremendous amount of time and resources to maintain. Right. So once again, I think yeah, so when you see success coming in, or when you see that you are able to bring in revenue, there will be more options open up to you. So make sure that your first goal is always chase after revenue, because that is something that will determine whether you will stay around for the next 1 year.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kit. Unfortunately, I think we ran out of time, but if anyone has any more questions, I'm sure Cargo Studio has its doors open for you in case you have any more queries. Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us today, Kit. And please give a round of applause to Kit for helping us. Yes.